Hey, perfect. We're on a few minutes, 2 minutes early right now, so we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm joined this evening with Paul O'Brien, head coach of NUIG Mystics, National League in Ireland, and coach with Moycullen. So we're delighted to have him on board, and he's going to talk to us about different drills to emphasize team principles. Coach, when you're ready, you can go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, Nabil. It's great to be here this evening. I guess I'll kind of start the same way I've seen a lot of the other ones, and thanks to you for organizing this. It's a great thing to be involved in. Seeing some of the other coaches, some of the stuff that they put up has really helped me as well, and some of the quality has been excellent. So just I guess a little bit about me to start. I've been involved with Moycullen Basketball Club since I was 13. Started playing there. Came all the way through the underage groups, played National League, Super League for a number of years, and through that then got involved in coaching underage with Moycullen. Started with an under 12 team and brought that through to about under 18. Then was given a chance to coach the NUIG men's varsity team, did that for 2.5 years before I went over to Canada. And I spent 2 years coaching AAU basketball in Toronto with a team called Top Notch Stars. So we had an affiliation with the USBA, and we went down to the USBA Nationals in North Carolina and tournaments like that, which were a great experience for me. And I moved back to Ireland in December and took the Mystics head coaching job along with the 2 varsity teams in NUIG, the men's and women's teams. So that's a little bit about my background. So today I'm going to be talking about drills that emphasize team principles. So I've kind of broken this down into 2 parts. The drills that I'll be looking at the second part of the talk. But to start out with, I'm kind of looking at concepts around different age groups and different things you should be doing with players at that age group. So the first question that I look at with this is, what style do I want to play? So this allows for the planning of practices with drills that suit the style of play that you want. So as a coach, I feel you need to know yourself what it is you want to do. If you want to play up tempo, slow it down, pass and cut, penetrate and kick, things like that. And based around those principles, you can then design your practices and look for specific drills. So I've always found there's no point in just going on to different websites and things like that and finding a drill that might not suit your team, but you like the look of the drill, and then you bring it into your practice and it doesn't really sit well. So that leads us into, it gives clear direction to the players. So if your players can see that you have a certain style of play and they can come into practice and into a season knowing that you're going to be running things in a certain way, and that allows them then to focus in, and they know what is expected of them coming into practice and into games. And then the third question is, what sort of coach am I? So this really resonated with me when I first started, what sort of person and coach I wanted to be to the players that I was involved with. So I kind of base my coaching strategy off 3 different coaches that I've had through my career, and they've all kind of had different influences. So the first one was a Polish coach that we had in Moycullen, speaking of Mardan, and he was the first coach that I had that kind of influenced me in terms of movement and athletics and things like that. We didn't have that before. The second coach is one that you had on this, actually, is Puff Summers. He coached me in NUIG for 2 years, and the communication that he brought and the level of intensity that he brought was something that I try and bring to my practices. Not on the same level as Puff, that wouldn't suit my personality, but I try and take a little bit of what he does in. And then the third one is Salva Camps, who coached Moycullen. He's now coaching the ACB in Spain, and he really looked at the technical side of things, like the angle you set a screen at and how important that is. So they're the 3 kind of influences that I've had that have led me to become the coach I am, which encourages my style of play. So looking at team principles for youth teams, both offensively and defensively. Offensively, for me, pass and cut, one-on-one stuff, penetrate and kick. I don't really look at pick and roll stuff for underage players, just more about ball movement and player movement. So the big one for me is pass and cut. I run that with under 12s all the way up to the National League team that I'm coaching. And then defensively for underage teams, man-to-man defense is, for me, the one to be going with. I wouldn't be teaching zone to underage kids. So man-to-man with ball pressure and teaching them full court defense. This also impacts your ability to be better at ball handling on the offensive end. So they're, for me, the key things to look at in terms of both offense and defense for underage teams. So the next thing is just objectives by age group. So we've broken it down into a few different age groups and what your goals should be for those teams based on each year. So under 9s, 10s, and 11s, we're looking to form basic understanding of basic basketball concepts. So the ability to dribble, the ability to pass the ball, movement, defensive slides, things like that. So that's kind of the under 9, 10, and 11. It's more individual based stuff, looking to develop those basic skills. Because if you can get those from a young age, it's really benefits you going forward when you start looking at the team aspect. So then under 12s, we begin to start introducing team concepts. So things like shell drills, where you pass and cut, help line, things like that. So that we kind of start to introduce at under 12. Under 13, kind of start looking at learning how to play without the ball, moving without the ball, getting open, and really focusing then on technique in terms of shooting, because they're a little bit stronger now, so they're able to reach the basket a little better than when they were younger. Next is under 14s and 15s, and now is when we start looking at concepts of collective offense and defensive principles. So we're still not at this stage looking at things like pick and roll necessarily. We're looking more at passing, cutting, penetrating, kicking, and defensive principles such as help, rotations, and things like that. So that's 14 and 15. Under 16 to 18 is when specific roles start to form for players. So up until this age group, I wouldn't focus on pigeonholing players into positions. You see, unfortunately, with some teams, that coaches have a tendency to say, oh, you're a tall player, so you're going to play as a post, and they don't develop their ball handling skills or maybe their passing skills. And this really affects them as they get older. So you might have a team at under 12 or 13 that's very effective in winning things because you have your tall players kind of maybe playing a zone or playing in the post. And by the time they get to being that little bit older, when players have caught up in height, they end up falling behind a little bit. So I wouldn't really look to get players playing specific positions until they're 16, 17, 18, which is kind of around the age that they might start to become integrated into senior teams and international teams. And then finally, underage is the under 20s, and this is where you start looking at the physical tools and how they can then become part of senior teams. So this all kind of seems like it's in a best case scenario. So you might be saying to me, oh yeah, under 9s, 10s, 11s, you start teaching basic dribbling stuff, but you might not get a player until they're 14 or 15. So do you go straight on to the understanding the concepts, or do you take it back, pair it back to teaching the individual skills? And that's a really tough one. I think you do have to start with the basics. So even if you get a player at an older age group who might not have played basketball before, you do still have to start with the base fundamentals and not just throw them straight into the deep end, teaching things that you think a maybe 14 or 15-year-old should be looking to learn. And this kind of strategy and the objectives is something that Salva brought into Moycullen a number of years ago when he was the coach there. And we've been very lucky in Moycullen that there is that progression, because a lot of our senior players end up coaching our underage teams. So as players come through the system, understanding the different levels and style of play within the club, and then they pass it down onto the underage teams coming through. So we have quite a good system in Moycullen, I suppose, where from under 12 all the way through to the Super League team, for the most part, everyone kind of plays the same style, and I guess things have the same hymn sheet. So just this chart here, so the shaded in boxes are the things that you can look to do with different age groups. So just looking at the first couple, basic defense position, use of hands, denying, pass lane defense, that's for all age groups. So, you might start coaching that under 9, 10, 11, but you don't forget about it going forward. You don't just check that off and say, yeah, done, moving on to the next thing. But they're the kind of base things you're looking for in terms of defensive fundamentals. If you look further down, you don't see any of the pick and roll stuff coming in until at the earliest under 14, but in most circumstances under 16. So it's all about developing the individual player from a very young level, and then building in team concepts as they get older. Because there's no real point in learning how to play pick and roll defense if you haven't first taught the player the proper defensive movements in terms of stepping, sliding, and things like that. And again, just another one here, but looking at offense, so dribbling, static dribbling, two-hand, crossing over, things like that are all things that we need to be teaching from a younger age. And we're not looking at the more advanced stuff like the low post moves you see at the bottom until they get a little bit older. And then in terms of team offense and defense stuff, a lot of it doesn't come in again until they're a little bit older, apart from things like transition, fast break, and knowing where to be on the floor, so occupying the right spots, and the concept of good spacing. So we really don't look to bring in organized drills or organized team stuff again until they're 14, 15, or 16. And this may seem a bit strange to some people, but it really has worked in Moycullen. I think if you look at the club in general, we've had a lot of success under 16, under 18, under 20 level, and maybe not as much success as teams in Galway leagues at under 12, 13, and 14. But this is because I feel we're really focusing on the fundamentals first, and then building the team stuff as they get a little bit older. And I feel like this really does benefit them going forward. So now we're just going to go into probably the concept really of what my talk should be about, which is looking at a few different drills that develop team concepts. So the first one is a one-on-one drill. So you have a passer up top with the ball, and you have an offensive and defensive player on the wing. And the offensive player is V-cutting, trying to get open, while the defender is playing deny defense. So once the ball is passed to the player on the wing, they square up, make a jab step or a shot fake, and pass it back to the top, cut through to the opposite side, and then they do the same thing on the opposite side. But this time when they catch the ball, it's one-on-one. So it's live, one-on-one playing towards the basket. So this is kind of the basics, the building blocks of our team principles offensively and defensively. Defensively, really looking to deny the wing, ball pressure when they get the ball, and your ability to play one-on-one defense. And then offensively, moving without the ball, so the cutting to get open, the back cut through to the opposite side, and then your one-on-one ability as an offensive player. So a progression through this drill would be the first time you do it, the offensive player can't make a backdoor cut, so the defender can really focus on full denial without knowing that they're going to get beaten backdoor. Then you build it on, you can beat them backdoor, so they have to have a little more awareness of what's going on the floor. A progression for the person with the ball, the first time they're just throwing regular passes, but then you teach them how to pass off the dribble. So passing with their right hand off the dribble, their left hand off the dribble. And you can even add in an on-ball defender guarding the passer as they get on a little bit, which simulates ball pressure, and they can really pressure the ball knowing that the person isn't going to dribble anywhere. So going on from a one-on-one drill towards a two-on-two scenario, which is a penetrate and kick and help and recover. So the player with the ball dribbles towards the middle, the defender guarding off ball steps in, stunts in to help. The player passes out to his teammate and you close out. So you do this 2 or 3 times without trying to attack the basket. And on the third one, it's live 2-on-2. So again, we're building on from the one-on-one stuff that we started with, and now we're starting to throw in some team principles here, such as the penetrating kick for the offensive player and the help and slide out and recover for the offensive player. Sorry, for the defensive player. So again, building on through this, you can throw in some competitive aspects to it. Like the only way that you get off defense is to get a stop. So you don't get to play offense unless you get a stop, or you stay on offense every time you score, and you can add in, first pair to 3 baskets wins. That adds that competitive nature to the drill as well. So the next one is 3-on-3, again, building up from the 1-on-1, 2-on-2 up to 3-on-3. So if your 3 defenders start on the baseline with the ball with one of the defenders in the corner, and you pass the ball around the top. So once the ball gets to the opposite side, you're live. So the 2 defenders in the corners cross, the defender in the middle stays in the middle, and once the ball reaches over there, you have 3-on-3. So again, we're looking at our defensive principles of on-the-ball defense, denial defense, and help defense. So it's, again, just building our principles, building what we want to do as a team. And once you start the 3-on-3, you can put in different rules. So the first time you play it, you might say you have to back cut to get the ball, cut and get open. Every time you pass, you have to cut. When they get a little bit older, then you can add in a ball screen or an off the ball screen, or you can have a player flash into the post and you can play 3-on-3 through the post. So out of a simple drill like this, you can kind of build it and keep building it and get more and more complicated and more complex as they get a little bit older. So then looking more towards 5-on-5 sort of stuff is the shell defensive concept. This is something that, for me is extremely important, and we bring it in kind of at under 12, under 13 level. And it's teaching the concepts of individual man-to-man defense, the concepts of on-the-ball defense, deny, and help. So being in the help position and the ability to rotate and recover. So for the younger teams, you're looking at the first things, the ball, deny, and help. So am I on the ball? Am I 1 pass away? I'm in deny. I'm more than 1 pass away. I'm in a help position. And as they get a little bit older, once they have those concepts down, you bring in the concept of rotation and recovering. And then offensively through that same sort of thing, shell offense, you have your 5 out, so top, 2 wings, 2 corners, and you're looking again at your one-on-one penetrating kick and pass and cut. So just looking at it schematically, is the picture on the left, you can see the ball is up the top, and you have your defender guarding the ball. Then your 2 players on the wing, they're 1 pass away, so they should be in deny. And then the players guarding the players in the corner are more than 1 pass away, so they're in help. You look at the image on the right, and the ball is now on the left wing. And you notice how the defense seems like it has just shifted across, but they still have the spacing between them. And you still have the concept of on the ball, deny, and help. So for me and for other teams that I've seen and coached, you draw a line down the middle of the floor from the basket, and that's the help line. So if your player's on the other side of that line, you're on that help line, and it enables you as a defense to shrink the court, and it makes it a lot harder for the offensive players to play one-on-one. So these are the shell drills that we do from every team that I coach, from under 12 all the way up to senior. We run these drills, and you can throw in different variations into it. So one of the competitive games that we play through it is the offensive team scores as normal, so you get your 3 for 3, 2 for 2, and the defensive team, in order to get off defense, they have to win in a game to 7, 9, or 11. And the way you score in defense is you get 1 point for a rebound, 2 points for a steal, and 3 points for a charge. So the first game that you play, you might say the offense can only score off back cuts or threes or penetration and kick. So you can really throw a lot of different scenarios into one simple drill that cover all your offensive and defensive scenarios and situations. So the last one that I'm going to go through now is a drill that I call, it's a 1 minute drill. It's probably the drill that I enjoy most as a coach, and it's a 5-on-5 drill. And so you split your two teams, and the scenario is one of the teams is up 3 points and there's 1 minute to go in the game, and they're getting the ball from the sideline. So you give them, I generally tend to give them a minute or two to discuss amongst themselves what they want to do. So it encourages them to be more creative and to think of different ways within our setup that, in case, you know, if I don't have a timeout at the end of the game, that they can set up an end of game situation themselves and have that ability. So the team that's down 3 points starts with the ball. Both teams are in the bonus, so any foul is a shooting foul, and you see basically how your team reacts to being down 3 and how they react to being up 3. And you know, for me, it's a really, really interesting drill, because you see which players take the lead in it and which players you might be able to go to in situations. And you know, it's also interesting to see, is the team going to shoot a 3 in their first possession? Do they understand that a minute to go in a game's a long time? Do they press the ball? Do they trap? When do they start fouling? So it allows for them to become more self-aware than just having a coach constantly telling them what it is they should or shouldn't be doing. So just to kind of wrap it up now in summary to what I've been talking about, you know, the first thing we looked at was style of play and what type of coach you want to be. And, you know, this is kind of the building blocks for me before you can get into the drills and that sort of thing, is how do I want to coach? What sort of coach am I? And they're really, really important questions you need to ask yourself. And then looking at the objectives by age group, you know, I might have gone a little bit quickly through some of those charts, but you know, hopefully this will be up again, and my email address will be on the next slide, so you can email me and ask me to send you these things on. And again, it isn't black and white. You know, it's not the sort of thing where you can just check off, okay, under 9s. You know, you get a team as an under 12 team, you can't automatically assume that they've gone through a progression from under 9, 10, and 11. So it's kind of an ideal world scenario, and it's one that clubs should maybe try and adopt. And the way to do that is through communication amongst coaches and a style of play within the club as a whole, rather than just each individual coach coaching in a different way. And then finally, just went through, you know, a few simple drills, building from 1-on-1 to 2-on-2, 3-on-3, through to 5-on-5 stuff, you know, that we can run with teams from 8, 9, and 10 all the way through to senior teams. Like all those drills that I went through there are things that we've done with under 12s all the way up to the senior team that I'm coaching currently. So finally, just thanks for listening. If you want to get in touch with me, you know, Instagram, so Paul O'Brien 1988, or via email, paul.o'brien1212@gmail.com. And you know, obviously at the moment I have a lot of time, so any questions that you may have, or any comments, or if you just want to chat about anything basketball related, you know, I'm available for anyone who is interested in that. And you know, from myself as well, I'm really enjoying these sessions that Nabil has put on, because it's engaging me and helping me to learn a lot as well. So thank you very much.
Great stuff, Coach. Really, really appreciate that. Thanks for sharing. You can leave the screen up, if you don't mind, with your Instagram and email, just in case anybody wants to kind of write that down and stuff. Got some stuff here for you. Let me see if I can get this up. Yeah, so just going back to the talk about the 2-on-2. One of our questions is, do you cover the help side defender? Well, let me get this right. Do you cover the help side defender selling out to help at the ball side block on the baseline drive and then recover, or scrambling? I hope you can.
Yeah, well, the way that I'd set this drill up is the player dribbling has to penetrate and attack middle. So the help is coming from the wing. So you're just stunting. It's not a full help. It's a stunt and a recover back out to your own player. So you're not playing live on the first couple of reps. So the defender lets the offensive player beat him towards the middle, which is something that is a big no-no usually in the way that we set things up. We don't want to be beaten middle, but it allows for our player to stunt and recover. So we're not really it's not a sellout thing where they're, if you get beaten baseline, the help isn't usually going to come from the top. It's going to come from the back.
Yeah.
So that's in this scenario. It's the player gets beaten middle, and it's a stunt and recover from that. So.
Okay, perfect. And then, how important is it to stop the ball at the point of attack?
I mean, it's pretty crucial, isn't it? If you could have all the systems put into place in the world that you want, but if you can't guard one-on-one and stop the ball, you're in a lot of trouble defensively, because then you're just constantly rotating and trying to recover, and you're going to give up a lot of easy baskets. So being able to stop the ball, like Puff said on Monday, having that kind of pit bull attitude and just not wanting to get beaten is vital.
So I've got this kind of there's a lot of different philosophies that come out at us, and there's this concept which I've heard recently, and I'd like your opinion. Some coaches are now saying that rather than focus too much on that initial one-on-one defensive element, they're almost encouraging that the ball handler, beats them, and they send them into their help, and that's what they want. So they're not trying to stop the ball; they're just trying to force the help, and then they want to rotate out of that. Whereas the different philosophy would be to contain the ball and stop the ball, and only if you get beat, then the help comes. How would you weigh between those two? Do you have any thoughts or opinions on that?
Yeah, I guess for me, we put a lot of time and effort into our ability to play defense, where we're able to help and recover and try and stop the ball when the primary defender does get beaten. But we do put a lot of emphasis on the ability for a player to guard one-on-one, because ultimately what you're saying about scrambling and that sort of thing is that can get really hard, especially when the offensive players might start cutting. It's very difficult then to maybe pick someone up after you get beaten, and you might end up giving up a lot of open shots or layups potentially through that. So for me personally, I wouldn't want my primary defender to get beaten. The help and recover is kind of just a system put in place in case that does happen. We put a lot of emphasis on and a lot of pride in our ability to stop someone from beating you. So.
And I'd be the same. I kind of have the same opinion as you. Like defensive stop, on-ball defender, it kind of sets the tone. So when you're just kind of allowing guys to beat you and encouraging the help side, I'm not sure, the full philosophy there, but it's something I heard and I thought I'd ask. Let me switch gears to go back to you've got a style of play which you showed us and you talked about briefly, and then you had sort of like a long-term development plan, whereas under 12s do this, under 14 do that. For argument's sake, I'm just going to call it a curriculum.
Yeah.
How do you how do you decide when is best to introduce something? Is that collectively as a club you guys came together and said that, or is that something whereas one guy said it and everybody else follows over?
I kind of skimmed over it a little bit. A lot of this stuff, like these charts here that kind of plan out under 9 up to under 20 was introduced by our coach, Spanish coach Salva Camps. And for us as a group of coaches, we all really bought into it. And obviously, like I said, you're not going to be in an ideal situation where you get every single one of your players starting under 9 and completing all the way through at under 20. You're going to get players joining in under 14 who might not have the skill set needed to progress on to, like it says here at under 14, you start talking about pick and roll defense. Maybe they're not ready for that yet. So, and within different clubs, you might not have the structure in place to allow for that to happen. So I think this is kind of ideal world scenario, but you also have to take into account your own situation and not just take something like this as a Bible. You have to judge your own players' abilities, and if at under 9, 10, 11 you said, okay, we've done basic defense position stuff like that, and you move on to something else, that they still might not get the concept. So you kind of have to go at the pace that your players allow you to go at as well.
Which makes sense. And for me, I think when it comes to curriculums like what you've just shown us, I think that's crucial for clubs. Like you said, it might not be ideal for everybody, but I think it's something we should all endeavor for as coaches, as clubs, to put something together for our clubs and for the development. So with me saying that, what would be the best way a club or a coach, looking at this can say, okay, well, we want to put something like this together. What's the best place for them to start gathering this information about, defensive concepts, offensive concepts, technical stuff, tactical stuff? How would a coach who's never done anything like this go about doing that?
Yeah, it's a really difficult kind of question, isn't it? It's fortunately for me, I guess I've never been in a situation where I've been at a club that doesn't have a lot of resources and a lot of support based around being a coach and being a player. To find this sort of stuff, I guess, you have to develop your own personality as a coach, and if you can get similar coaches around you within your club who have a similar strategy and style that they want to go with, then you can build a curriculum based around that. I was fortunate enough before this whole COVID-19 thing started that I was started being the assistant coach of the under-14 Western Regional team, which is based through Basketball Ireland. So Tommy Walsh is the head coach, and going through the grassroots to green shoot stuff, that curriculum is quite similar to the one that we actually have in place through Moycullen. So just talking to better coaches, I guess, like talking to the guy who put this together, Salva Camps. I mean, he was an incredible coach, and through him is how this stuff kind of came into being. So you just need to try and get to know people and talk to people, and there's no such thing as a silly question, really. So if you have a question about any of this, just find someone and just ask them, I guess.
Perfect, appreciate that. And then obviously with your current role and your position right now, how important would you say mentoring is?
Sorry?
How important would you say mentoring is? So like
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're working with people below you, coaches and under 14 coaches you mentioned. So do you mentor them? Do you have somebody that mentors you? How important would you say that is?
Yeah, I guess again, I'm talking about the situation that I've come through, which was through Moycullen, and we've been extremely fortunate that the players who came through the system have ended up going back into the system and coaching themselves, coaching underage teams as well. So I learned from the likes of Jerry Nihill, Salva Puff, John Cunningham, Nolly Cunningham, and through that, then I started coaching, and then the likes of Gerald Lyons, who just won the under-20 national cup with Moycullen, started coaching. Dylan Cunningham won the under-18 national cup last year, and some of the younger players now who they coached are starting to coach as well. So we've been very, very fortunate to have that cycle of players who want to give back, and they've been through this kind of the system, the strategies that we put in place, and they then start coaching that as well. So it's very cyclical. So we're just extremely lucky to be based where I guess I was based, and that's the mentoring coach-wise. With NUIG, we have a link between all the different coaches, so between basketball, rugby, rowing, and that sort of thing, and we mentor through the scholarship program. So we try and get in touch with our scholarship athletes and make sure that they're doing okay, not only at times like this, but during normal season times, and with things like testing and different practices, physiotherapists, psychologists, and all that sort of stuff. So
perfect. Last question I have for you there. What age do you think, at what stage of development do you think kids should start picking up and playing defense full court?
Straight away from under 9. You know, one thing that has been a big improvement, especially out here in the West, was a number of years ago they kind of stopped allowing teams from playing zone up until under 14. So men teams had to start playing man to man. But one thing that I think that we still need to build and develop on is allowing teams to press full court. And it's something that, especially you look at our national teams, you know, what are we good at? We're good at getting up and down the floor, pressing, running, doing things like that. So we need, I think as a culture and looking at the region that I'm based in at the moment, allowing teams to press full court, and I think it's vitally important to be able to press full court from a very young age.
Now, obviously, the rules don't allow us to press full court at that stage, and if I'm not mistaken, we can't press full court until under 14, if I'm not mistaken. So, in your practices with the under 12s and under 11s, would you encourage them to play up in your face full court defense, or is it a case that, you know what, the rules don't let us do this, so in practice we're also not going to do this?
No, we practice full court press. You know, not only does it develop your ability to play defense for the entire length of the court, but you know, builds up your defensive stamina. You know, if you can press a player the full length of the court, you know, it's a hell of a lot easier than when you're playing half court defense to guard someone. So even if you might not be able to do it in a game situation, it's going to enable you to become better with your footwork, your foot speed, and things like that. So, you know, you're still developing the player for when they get to be, you know, like I can't remember what age you have to be before you can press properly, but once you get to that age group, then you're already ahead of the curve. So.
Perfect. I know I said last question 2 questions ago, but just some more questions came in there. So if you don't mind, I'll keep it going. Did playing the game give you a different sense of connecting with players?
Yeah. Again, having been very fortunate to be coming through Moycullen, and we had a very good underage team at our age group, and then, you know, winning a national cup in Division 1 and going on to play Super League, you know, having played at that higher level has really helped me in terms of coaching, especially the more, I guess you could say, elite players, but also with the younger teams, because I have an appreciation of the work that went into it and the work that they are doing to get better. You know, that's the great thing about coaching for me, is seeing someone get something. So teaching someone a different concept or idea, and then they get it. That's the beauty of it for me. So, but yeah, playing at a high level, I think it's definitely helped me as a coach.
And do you think that would give coaches across the board an advantage, having played the game, or is it more that it's worked for you but everybody's different?
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to play. I mean, you know, take for an example the likes of a Jurgen Klopp, who was never a superstar of a football player, but you know, he's probably one of the best football managers in the world now. So having played at a higher level certainly wouldn't give you necessarily an advantage against someone who maybe didn't play at such a high level. No.
Okay, perfect. Really do appreciate you taking the time. I think it was a great presentation. I really enjoyed it. I hope most of the attendees actually enjoyed it. If there's any other questions, guys, fire them across, and if not today, we'll answer them later on.